As a mother, this is the story that stopped me. I hope it stops you too. Your baby was born. The nurse looked at the clock. 60 seconds passed. She wrote a number on a chart. You probably don't know what that number means. You probably don't know where it came from. But that number taken in the first minute of your child's life is the reason they are alive. And the woman who invented it died without ever appearing in a single history book. Before 1952, babies were born and placed on a table. If they cried, they were fine. If they didn't cry loudly enough, if the problem was inside, invisible, silent, nobody checked, no protocol, no score, no alarm, they just died. And nobody counted how many, because nobody had built a system to count them yet. That system was built by one woman, in one morning, on the back of a cafeteria sign. Virginia Apgar graduated from Columbia Medical School in 1933, fourth in her class, smarter than almost every man in that room. She wanted to be a surgeon. Her mentor told her quietly, not cruelly, just honestly, that no hospital would hire a female surgeon. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She did not argue. She looked for another door. The door she found was so small and so overlooked that nobody had bothered to guard it. Anesthesiology in the 1940s was not a medical specialty. It was a task something nurses did, or interns did, or whoever was available did, while the real doctors operated. Virginia Apgar walked into that room and decided it was hers. She built a department from nothing. She was the only staff member for years. The pay was insultingly low. The surgeons she worked alongside did not consider her an equal. By 1949, she was a full professor at Columbia, the first woman in the history of the institution to hold that title. She got there by doing work so good that ignoring her became professionally embarrassing. But the work that actually changed the world started with a question she could not stop asking. She had attended thousands of births. She had watched what happened in the delivery room. The chaos, the noise, the focus on the mother, the baby placed aside, the assumption that if nothing was obviously wrong, then nothing was wrong. And she kept seeing babies die from things that were not obvious, things that were invisible, things that a 60-second check would have caught. One morning in 1952, a medical student sat down across from her at breakfast and asked casually, over coffee, whether there was a standardized way to evaluate a newborn right after birth. There wasn't. Virginia Apgar picked up the nearest piece of paper. It was a cafeteria sign. Please bus your own trays. She turned it over and wrote 5 words. Heart rate, breathing, muscle tone, reflexes, color. 0, 1, or 2 points each. Total out of 10. Done in 60 seconds. She handed it to the student. She had just invented the most widely used clinical assessment in the history of medicine. She presented it at a medical conference later that year. The room was skeptical. Doctors did not need a scoring system, they said. They could tell whether a baby was healthy by looking. Virginia Apgar did not fight them. She collected data. Thousands of births. Thousands of scores. She built a body of evidence so large and so clear that by the end of the decade, dismissing it required ignoring numbers that were right in front of you. The medical establishment eventually stopped arguing not because they changed their minds, but because the data made their position indefensible. The Apgar score did something that had never been done before in a delivery room. It made the baby a patient. Not an outcome. Not a byproduct of the mother's care. A patient with their own vital signs, their own assessment, their own score that demanded a response. That shift in thinking from the baby seems fine to the baby has a 4 and needs intervention saved a number of lives so large that no one has successfully counted it. The score also created something else. Once babies were being systematically assessed, the data made something visible that had always been true but never been measured. Some babies needed more than a delivery room could give them. They needed specialized equipment, specialized staff, specialized care for days or weeks after birth. Virginia Apgar's score generated the evidence that built the argument for the neonatal intensive care unit. The NICU that keeps premature babies alive today exists in part because her data made the case that they needed a room of their own. In 1959, she joined the March of Dimes and immediately redirected it. The organization had been focused on polio. Virginia Apgar looked at the numbers and saw something else. Birth defects. Infant mortality from preventable causes. Rubella German measles spreading through pregnant women and destroying the development of their unborn children. She began a national campaign for rubella vaccination before the pandemic hit. In 1964 and 1965, rubella swept through the United States. The women who had been vaccinated their babies were born healthy. The ones who hadn't, the statistics are not easy to read. She traveled the country giving lectures. She appeared on radio programs. She spoke to parent groups, medical associations, school boards, anyone who would have her. She understood something that most researchers never grasp, that a discovery locked in a medical journal saves no one. A discovery that reaches the ordinary people who need to act on it that saves lives. She was not content to be right. She needed to be heard. She never married. She never had children. She worked completely, constantly, with an energy that exhausted everyone around her. In whatever time was left over, she played violin in amateur chamber groups, built instruments by hand with a friend, grew a garden, went fly fishing, and in her 50s began taking flying lessons. Her stated goal was to one day fly under the George Washington Bridge. Nobody who knew her doubted she would try. She was asked once whether she regretted not having a family. The question assumed something about her that wasn't true, that work was a substitute for something she had wanted and missed. She didn't answer it that way. She said that by the time she was finished, she would have had a hand in more children's survival than most people could imagine. That was not bitterness. It was a precise and accurate description of what she had built. Right now, somewhere in the world, a baby is being born. The clock is running. In 60 seconds, a nurse will check 5 things: color, heart rate, reflexes, muscle tone, breathing, and write a number on a chart. That number will determine whether the next 5 minutes are calm or urgent, whether a doctor is called or a team rushes in, whether a baby goes home in 3 days or spends 3 weeks in intensive care. That entire system, that 60-second window that catches what cannot be seen, is Virginia Apgar's, performed right now, every few seconds, somewhere on Earth. Her name is not in the history books most people read. Ask anyone to name a doctor from the 1950s, they will name a man. Ask any parent whether their child received an Apgar score at birth. Most will say yes. Ask them who Apgar was, almost none will know. This is the standard pattern for women in medicine. The work survives, the name fades, the procedure runs, the person disappears. Virginia Apgar's name became an acronym: appearance, pulse, grimace, activity, respiration, as if the score needed a way to remember itself after she was gone. In 1994, 20 years after her death, the United States issued a postage stamp in her honor. She had been a stamp collector her entire life. The irony is the kind she would have appreciated: her face, finally, on a small piece of paper the same size as the cafeteria sign she turned over one morning and changed the world on. The next time someone tells you that a baby's Apgar score was good, that everything looked fine at 1 minute, fine at 5 minutes, that the nurse smiled and wrote something down and the room relaxed, remember what that moment cost to build. Remember a woman who was told surgery wasn't for her and built something more lasting than any surgery, who wrote the most important clinical tool in neonatal medicine on the back of a cafeteria tray sign, who attended 17,000 births and kept counting, who never had children of her own and helped save millions of everyone else's. Her name was Virginia Apgar. She deserved a chapter. This is it. If you want to keep hearing the names that were left out, subscribe before you go.